guy was
Which one with the wine glass you're talking about?
bald guy, wine glass.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good friend of mine.
Okay.
And so let's try that. Why is it stopwatch? That's what I need reset. So yeah, so here we are. We are in the Santa Anita Mall, and this is. What name do you go by these days?
I go by Malik Alexander.
You go by Malik Alexander. Yeah, because on my phone you're Juan Guno or something. Guano. Yeah, it's a different.
It's just Malik Alexander. It's all condensed. It's so long.
And this is the first time that I've actually had more than one person on, and this is an unexpected surprise. And so we have another person, and so I haven't seen you since maybe 2016.
Yeah, we had some tacos.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some pretty good tacos, actually.
Oh yeah, at that in MacArthur Park.
I still remember.
Yeah.
It was great. Yeah, I'm just
So it's an interesting area around here because there's a lot of you got the Santa Anita racetrack, right? Then you have this giant mall. I don't think I've ever seen a mall of this size before. It's really huge. And then you have the Los Angeles Arboretum across the street. Have you been there? Oh, you're missing out.
I've never been. I think I went when I was really young.
Yeah. It's quite pleasant. I mean, the Huntington is much better, I think. But, I mean, there's peacocks, and it's cheap. It's a good day. But it's been closed since COVID, right? Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I was mentioning how crazy it is that we dedicate so much effort to just selling stuff. Isn't that weird, right? Like, we don't think twice that we have these giant buildings here that are all of this human effort, all of this human energy. Thousands of people have worked on this thing. And for what? For food that's going to make you sick and die. Cheesecake Factory, none of that's healthy. Right? I don't know what Pop Bar is. Maybe it's just alcohol. Benihana, just a liquor store, right? And then, it's trash.
Yeah, it is. This is sort of just like a big old mole.
All right. Yeah, and then you go over here and you see like Forever 21. That's just fast fashion. That's stuff that's just made by sweatshops. And it's cheap clothes that people are going to throw out in a couple weeks or whatever it is. And these are what we're going to leave to, the previous sort of civilizations, they leave, here's our place of worship for the gods, here's our great university, here's our great sort of monument. And we're leaving Cheesecake Factory, right?
I always thought that cheesecakes everywhere. Like they're going to find like a pair of golden arches in the desert, the gods is going to like, what the fuck was that?
Wouldn't it be funny if they somehow attributed something like great to it, like this is where the scientists gathered, something like really sort of stupid, and it's just like it makes you sort of question if there was an alternative system where you would create such a place as this, but it would be for other ends. Maybe this would be sort of community spaces, perhaps gardening up here, and maybe a place down there for lecturers that would come through.
I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah.
Pretty cool because that's hilarious because that like you say that, but like we all know like why it's not like that. I mean, there's so much like to the business of America and the continual industrialization.
Well, I think that the only reason is because business requires a level of organization that regular humans don't. And at the end of the day, decide with the more organization wins. And because businesses require it to operate.
But I think businesses can operate without taking advantage of people, without.
I'm just going to take off my shoes as well.
Like putting people at risk so business can thrive. So like a non-life, it's not a human, it's a business. This business will thrive when people will, they'll go bankrupt and they'll work hard for somebody else who's in a fucking building somewhere, just collecting all the work.
But what I was trying to say is that the reason that we build these structures for consumption and not for thriving is because we don't make the social decision to do so, because we don't organize around that. And what I'm saying is that in order to successfully execute Cheesecake Factory, you need to have a hierarchy, you need to have managers, you need to have all these people with different roles, you need to have all this structured organization, right? But in order to do, the other types of pursuits in life, you don't need such a rigid structure. And the artifact of that rigid structure is that it gives them political and social power. And so that they can execute stuff like this. Whereas the other aspects of life, since they don't have that rigid structure, they don't get that artifact. And so you don't have that social power. And so we all individually desire for something else. But since we don't organize together for that end, in the same way that they organize together to make people fat or whatever, we don't get that.
That's because a lot of people are brainwashed into believing that there wouldn't be a way of that happening, or people are depressed out here, like people, especially these times,
that's one thing I wanted to talk about, is the depression thing. It's something I was realizing this morning, is that this goes back to the conversation I had last week, is that I want to have this thing called a nonsense space. And essentially what happens is that every single child, if you, let's say you're walking down the street and you see a bus stop and you see this person who just looks like that they've had the life sucked out of them, right? They're like in whatever, like a button-down shirt, and they look like that they are terrible, right? And then you're like, when was the last time that person dreamed or imagined? But you know that when that person was 3 or 4 years old, they ran around just like everybody else. They had a cardboard box that this is a spaceship. They had, a coloring book where they did art and they drew pictures. It's not when we started drawing, it's when we stopped, right? And at one point, society said, okay, you can no longer do that. And they said, okay. And that's what it's become. And what we've done is we've professionalized imagination, and we call it artists, and we call it actors, and we call it all the writers, right? And we say, you can only imagine, and you can only play if that's your profession. Otherwise, you're prohibited from doing it, which is nonsense. In the same way that you can jog without being a professional jogger, you can decide to lift weights for your own personal health without being a professional weightlifter. I think that there should be a place where we can imagine, we can bullshit, we can say none of this is going to be true and that's okay without being a professional actor.
That's what, going back to what you're saying about community spaces and stuff like that is the reason why those things should exist. And the only reason why this is here mall instead of something like that is because the businesses surrounding things that create this stuff don't care about those things. It's like for the purpose of a business.
Right, because we've decided to not make them care. At the end of the day, no businesses are anonymous.
It's also not. I wouldn't so much blame people for making.
But there's human beings behind everything.
Okay, I see. Well, but the people who create the businesses are the ones that lay those things down on the people, where people already feel like they have no choice.
Sure, it's a result of enculturation, right?
Like when you have this kind of system that voices those images and consumption of people, like it's sad. Like you have a kid that doesn't recognize their own parents, but they recognize Ronald McDonald.
Right.
Or that's kind of scary. Because that becomes all consuming. And that's all you think about really. Like you think you can't get out of it because it's everywhere. Like all these things that we're bombarded with all the time. It's like we just want time to think about things. Other than that.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think, what we do where we mistake the cough for the cold, if you will. Like to get into, let's say, politics. I think that all of this terrible politics that we have is a consequence of how we've decided to structure society, and it's the natural output. And basically, it's like a machine, where if you configure a machine a certain way, and then you turn the gears, and then it does what you told it to do, then it's like, how can you be surprised? And so what I'm saying is all of this toxic stuff that we have is a result of how we have either consciously or unconsciously structured our society, and it has generated this as a consequence.
Sure.
And
I agree with that.
and by reducing the cough, if you will, or removing, let's say, Donald Trump or whatever it is, it's not going to fix the generative effects that produced it. And it'll still be there to continue generating more.
Everything is like, all people, everybody is like subjected to that.
Uh-huh.
That there are the outside forces that create like why certain people do certain things, why we see people that, like you said, look like they're kind of got the soul sucked out of them.
Uh-huh.
Because in a way they did.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and like they really gave up.
Right, and they haven't been given the permission, if you will, to get it back, nor have they been given the sort of the encouragement to do so.
Right, you know, that I was on that yesterday. I saw something. I was thinking, when was the last time maybe that guy had him checked up on him? You know what I'm saying? And it's like it was a dude in a wheelchair. He was just out on the street.
Right.
You think about those things. You see that shit all the time. It's like, did you see? So I don't know. It just depends because, like you said, like in those ways, I feel like then certain people consciously do things like ignore people like that, and then they ignore what creates that, and they get lost in. They get like you can get lost like in so many different ways. People can end up on the street, but you could be totally fine. You could have a car and a house and a wife and some kids, but you could be like a total piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? Like you could have the idea of people imagines like what a good person looks like. You know what I mean in society, like the joke or whatever. And it's like you could ignore things like homeless people and stuff like that, and that creates like that unconscious continuation as well. I think like it's like
But part of that isn't their fault because those
No, you're right.
are
It isn't.
organizational problems.
No, it isn't.
Is that as an individual,
People don't know.
I can only do so much without organizing a collective in order to truly affect the world. You know what I mean? Like if it was just Ray Kroc running McDonald's, and we wouldn't have it. So that's what I'm saying is that the artifacts of the organizational necessities that come with this is the thing that gives it the political power, right? And that is that we don't choose to organize around these other things, or we sort of push that off and say, oh no, that's the government's problem, right? It's not us as individuals to do that. No, that's what I pay my taxes for, or whatever it is. And it's not, because the government's supposed to be us, right? We're supposed to be self-governing, right? That's the whole concept behind it. So as a result, it just doesn't get done.
Because that's also part of the illusion. That way, like the self-government that we have, like, because we do have power in some ways, but we don't utilize them.
Right. Well, that's the thing is that I think that we do self-govern when we collectively choose to leverage it. It's just that when the fact that we don't mean that we don't self-govern, right? And I think that's what the consequence when we see all these terrible politicians, and we're like, what the heck's going on? You know, and it's because we have chosen to sort of not do our responsibility as a society in order to make sure that we get, very qualified statesmen that we can all say, I might disagree with this person, but they're very eloquent and whatever, right? They really know what they're doing. But we don't. We have a bunch of idiots, right? Because we don't collectively do it. Yeah. So there's a cultural problem.
And also,
it's part of America's sickness.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of Americans who talk about politics and I don't pretend to know about politics, so I don't talk about it too much. So the things that I do observe is mostly just like the way that people ingest it. And I notice that if it's like from the news or something.
That's another sort of consequence of the sickness. I mean, you see how people react to it, right?
Yeah.
It's totally unhealthy. Oh wow, yeah, it's totally caustic.
Reaction, like you said, partly how we then take that in. What do we do with that?
Yeah, it's these irrational emotions that just overtake them, right? And then they lash out at people. It's completely unproductive. It's insane.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, the system's broken, just fundamentally.
But then it's like, then again, it's like that, you know, like what would we do? Like, you know, the three of us right now, like, and I'm not saying that, but you know, like that's what it almost seems like, because that's why I think most people accept what's around them, because they think about it and they feel like they can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they really couldn't change it or create any kind of change. I don't believe that it ever will be like that. I think that it just starts with everybody, every single person in their own mind deciding that they want that too, that they won't give up.
I've thought about.
People don't like, they don't realize that, like, yeah, like if we did all get together. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I interrupted you.
Like, if we really did all get together, we could make a lot of crazy stuff happen in this country, like that we want. But like you said, if there's nothing, if there's not that feeling, like people, like it's hard. It's so big,
Well,
so much bigger than us. It seems so much bigger.
People, they seem to get together for a protest, but they don't get together the day after. You know, they'll get together to, you know, yell at the streets, but then the actual organization, the hard work, it just doesn't seem to happen, or it does, but in small parts. I've thought about maybe something like starting a religion would be a nice idea, because if you think about it, like, what is a church? It's a lecture hall, and people go weekly to hear lectures about their lives, right? But it's from only one book. You know, I imagine one where it's from any book, right? And it's not about spirituality. It's about, like, you know, I don't know, like maybe international history or whatever the heck it is, right? And it's based on donations, the same thing. There are a few of those organizations out there, but they're all sort of snobby and elitist, you know, for like these prudes. But I want one for the general public, for just, you know, people like us.
That's interesting. You know, I guess like just that's just like creating general. Like that's cool. I like that, man. Because that, to me, that's just like good faith, like good health. Trying to bring, like, people might not attach themselves towards one thing, but then they might go another time.
It's just all for personal health, really, because we all need community.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. That's why I was saying, like, I think it's funny that, like, people don't congregate. Because I really just think that, especially with the current, like, pandemic and all of that, like people say about, like, I don't know, it's just separating people more, you know? Like, that's how I see it.
And it's funny how some people say, like, oh, how's the pandemic going? I say, well, it hasn't actually changed anything for me. And I was like, how are you living? Like, or are you just, like, living in a cabin? Like, I don't know.
I feel like we're being in like an,
You need to talk up a bit because of the microphone. I'm sorry.
it's like being in an accordion or something. You know, you're like, but it's beautiful music though. You know, like there's more than that, more than what we feel right now. You know, all the time. You know, oh, I don't feel good, but someone out there's feeling good, and you know what I mean. Like, just rise to that level and not worry about too much. Enjoy your day. You know, do whatever you can. You know, despite all of this. You know, I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about all this stuff anymore. I used to really feel more passionate about taking down all these things, but I'm like, sometimes I feel like, I mean, we kind of deserve it in a way, because we don't, like, you know, we don't do enough to, like, sift through what we don't really like. Like, I want people to say no more to things. I don't want them to just go along and just not question anything.
Yeah, but there's got to be an alternative vision to say yes to.
Yeah.
Right, a coherency. I mean, that's one thing that these places do, is that I know what the Cheesecake Factory is, right? And I know what, I mean, okay, I don't know what Pop Art is, but I know what Benihana is, right? But if I'm talking about, like, we need to reorganize, you know, like this, it's still just a super abstract concept. Like,
It really is.
Like, what does it mean?
That's why I think, again, it creates that idea that you can't do too much, and, like, it stops people from, like you said, consciously finding other people that want the same thing.
It's got to be hyper-focused, you know?
For sure, it has to be what you really want. Like I said, I've never been political. I think it all comes from each other. We all get little parts here and there from each other, and like find people that you feel like if you just start talking to somebody and you feel that, like that's just a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, like that's just, I think that brings a lot. You know, I mean, but that's what sucks is you know, the American school system sucks. You know what I mean? Like some people decide to stop learning. You know, there are a lot of adults, you know, a lot of people, my peers my age, that they don't read too much, or you know, I think like reading is super fucking important.
Yeah. I'm always I like to like read the comment threads on Facebook of the news things or the different advertisements or whatever, because it sort of gives me a pulse of the nation. It's people that I don't usually engage with, because we all filter who we choose to engage with, and something like that. It's somewhat more. What?
I love internet comments.
It's somewhat more unfiltered, because you're like, well, like let's see what these other people think, and you're like, well, how can? And you look at this person, and they're like. Yeah, and exactly what you said, and they have like an 8th grade understanding of the world, and they're 65, and you're like, that's because they haven't picked up a book since they went to school. You know, they never decided to continue onward. I guess that's part of what we talked about beforehand. How there's like how we say you can imagine because you're a professional artist. We're saying like, you know, oh, you can learn because you're sitting in a building called a school, right? But if you're not in that building called a school paying some money, then you're not, you know, you're doing something else. It's this, you know, it's kind of the negative consequences of organizing society in a way that we have, is that we unnecessarily restrict what can happen within it. And yeah, it's not at all healthy.
I agree with that, man. This is all very, man. You smoked a fat bowl of weed before we came over here. I was not expecting the conversation to go so heavy so quick. This is awesome right now. This is awesome.
This is what the project's all about.
This is great. Like I mean, like I said, I'm not too political, but I you know, we see things every day. Like we're like us too. Like we're people who are like, we see a lot of shit.
Yeah, I don't think it's a question of politics. I think it's a question of social. It's a different thing. It's about society building.
Yeah,
and culture. You know, it's not about Democrats or Republicans or any of the things that we sort of talk about. I've got no interest in that as well.
I think we just have to value our culture more.
Yeah.
And we're really becoming like too removed from like flesh and bone.
It's about how we interact.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. It's about what makes us human. You know, it's a much different thing.
Like it's okay. Like I don't know. I love the flaws. I think it's great. That's what makes us kind of stronger. You know. It's like if everything were perfect, you know, we'd be terrible.
Yeah, flaws are where creativity comes from. Yeah. It is. So there was one thing, I don't know if you got around to it, but I asked people to have a topic for it. Did you think of any topics that you
I was talking about the way over. I didn't think of anything. Well, you know, nothing in particular.
Okay.
I kind of like what we're doing now because I like to just improvise. You know, like this. There's so many topics we can talk about.
Right, but is there something else? Is something that you've been wanting to explore more deeply on? Something that you have, something that inspires you? What frustrates you? What do you think that's one thing that the COVID has really enabled us to do, is sort of reflect upon our own lives and how and what we're doing, and sort of question our own self. So,
you know, I think I don't know. I kind of want to go back to like, I mean, at least the depression issue, you know, or emotional issues. You know.
Okay.
That's pretty important. I think.
Sure.
Especially right now, you know. I mean, for me, it's like, you know, we're all gonna have like our problems, but you know, it's just acknowledging and accepting whatever comes at you. You know, that's the main thing to do. You know, I mean, you can't let your emotions control your life. You know,
but they do fundamentally.
They do. They like that. Have you seen that movie? What's that movie? You know, you're inside that person's head. Remember the emotions? It's like a Pixar film. It was really
Okay,
good.
Continue.
But anyway, like, yeah, but there was one character in there that it was anger. You know, like that. You can't let that control your life. But it it's a facet of your life. It's not an all-encompassing thing, because then you just be like a serial killer or something, you know, or you'd be whatever, you know, just too angry.
I understand, but like, there is nothing that gets us out of bed in the morning other than our emotions, because it determines the desires, the wants, the needs, the futures, the dreams, all of those things, right? It's not like there's a rational. I mean, maybe like okay, if you're like, I have to use the restroom, then maybe there isn't an emotional thing there, and you get up and do that, or I'm hungry or something like that. But everything else is part of your emotional. Even the most stoic scientist out there. All right, even the most rational person. Well, why are they doing that?
Right, and what's the basis of rational, kind of world that we live in?
Well, no, it has a place, but it's not the motivating function.
It depends on what you wanted. Like you said, like I agree with that. Like it just depends on like what you wanted. Like I think there's also we have control over our feelings. I think it's not like stopping certain things or like not feeling, but I think just learning like how or why like we do things, right? Like because if you want like you base your thing around like that, your emotions, I would say, because the way I personally like I like what you guys are saying, and like I'll say it just as a personal thought, like I'm kind of looking at it from an end of like I generally feel like I have a thought and then I feel something about it. So like to me, it's kind of like I think something and I'm like, well, I feel this way about it, and depending on what's, I don't know. I just feel like it's like I may feel like I got off track. I don't know what I'm saying, honestly, because I may be like not like a lot of people, because low-key I'm pretty happy most of the time. Like there was a point in my life where I was like super depressed, just like what's the word? Just chronically depressed. But then like I don't know, I had to take a lot of fucking acid and mushrooms too. So like I have to say like there's a lot of things that go into that depending on the kind of person you are, And me per se, I may say certain things help me, and I was never someone who was like a deadhead. I was like licking drops with like hundreds of tabs of acid at a time, but. I've done my fair share enough to where I feel like...
Do people take hundreds of tabs at a time?
Man, I've heard of crazy things like that, man. But I just what I'm saying, like, I always use psychedelics as certain things, man. I don't know about that. So, I don't know, what would happen to you, though? I mean, if you did that, that would be pretty insane.
That sounds medically unadvisable.
I hear about stories of, like, from the 70s, like...
Yeah, I thought that people took, like, 2 or 3, but, like, and even that's, more than most... People only do it once in a lifetime, right? But like, hundreds? I have no idea.
I've heard of that.
But I mean, that's one of the most. No. But that's one of the most amazing things about drugs, right? Is that when you hear about like I don't know, people that smoke meth or whatever it is, and then you find out the true addicts out there, and they do like orders of magnitude, like. How do you live? it's insane what the body can adapt to.
No, but totally true, and I think that's a big part of the emotions is that your body can adapt to things that are going on in the mind depending on where is conscious and unconscious.
I think it's how much you want to live, also.
What do you mean, how much you want to live? Okay, can you give?
I don't know. Like, you do drugs for a reason, you all have a reason why we do it. If you're really keen on your mortality and you don't really care, and you can die from that, but you don't really care. Like that's what I mean. Like, you don't have to be here. You know, you check out what you want to be doing drugs. I'm not against that. Like whatever gets you through this shit. I don't know. It depends on how much you want to do to yourself, how much you can handle also.
Yeah, because it's like you talk about drugs, it's like, you get pharmaceuticals and stuff, and they say it's like a lot of those drugs like change balances and your chemicals in your brain, which sure that's totally, and I mean, I'm no monk, so I don't think I'll be able to control all of that all the time. You know, my own brain. We all do. I think everybody does as much as they can. You know, but everyone only can do up to that level. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean,
that's why politics and the way that people talk about politics and argue about certain things, it's like people are only thinking at a certain level that they know. And no one's at a higher level. It's just we know different. Everyone knows different things. You know what I mean? Like, so in that rate, it's like, yeah, I feel like it's funny talking about that because drugs are just. I mean, it's like depending on what drug you're talking about. You know, sometimes I'm mad. It's like that doesn't do much for anybody ever. It's just sort of there.
I mean, I think that part of it is it's not the substance or the tool or the object or the person, it's your relationship with it. And that's true regardless of what we're talking about. We could be talking about guns or sex work or anything, right? That you can choose to have a healthy relationship and a productive relationship, or methamphetamines, if you will, or whatever it is, right?
Do you believe that though?
I think that some of them have much more narrow paths than others, right? I think that some of them all have destructive options. I mean, even something that you can think of. I don't know, maybe jogging sounds like something that doesn't have a destructive option, but I'm sure it does. I'm sure there's people that are hooked on jogging and they go out and they go running and they miss appointments and meetings and they just can't, and they hurt their feet or their knees, whatever, right? Like
sweaty.
Well, what I'm saying is that every single object, every single sort of thing that there is, even an idea, right, or politics or religion or anything like that. Like I think that people can have a very healthy and a very destructive relationship with religion.
Totally, I think
it's the relationship dynamic is what matters.
Yeah, totally. Because I don't believe, like he was saying, I don't think you should judge other people for where they're See, I'm going off another thing because I think
you should certainly judge people upon that because some things are more healthy than others.
Sure. That's definitely the way that I meant to say it, because I was gonna sort of sound like a total asshole, like the way I would have said it. Because I mean, we walk around all the time, and bro, like he said this to me yesterday. Like, what was it like when that guy? He said like, why do people what is it like? Why do people?
They always ask us for drugs.
Yeah, people always ask us for drugs. Now, like, and maybe it's like we don't even know. Maybe it's the way we look. Maybe it's the way
you look.
acting,
Absolutely.
And for sure I know that. But I mean,
people ask me for financial advice. So.
Right.
No, I'm serious. They come up and they say, do you have any hot stock tips or something? And I'm like, okay.
You do look fresh with those glasses.
Yeah.
You look like a modern stockbroker.
Like I know what I'm talking about there, right?
You know what you're talking about. But I agree with that. I think you should. But it's like the whole idea about people might ask us we're people. People may ask us shit like that all the time, and we want to do those things, and it's because you know what, I had something honestly, but I kind of lost it low-key. Because I really just feel like
you know what you should do is you should learn a couple words of French that you say amongst each other, and then learn how to say no, we are tourists, like in very broken English to these people, and then they're like, oh, they're from Paris, okay, because you totally look like that you could easily be like Parisians, like just over here, and they're like, what are they doing in Artesia?
Yeah, I mean, this guy just asked us yesterday. We were walking around, and this dude was asking us. He straight up, asked us for I don't know what he said.
He's like, get the ice. I'm like, the ice. That's like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I don't even know what ice is.
I didn't know what you were doing.
Okay.
One asks for a gun, because you get the heat up.
Why are there 95 words for this stuff?
And then it's just a whole.
Yeah, true.
Like this is called chew. Like I don't call this thing like the blackie or like no, nothing else to this. Like the Michael or whatever.
Yeah, no, I there's some kind of code for people don't know what they're talking about.
I used to think
only meth has to do with ices.
That sounds like something like I used to think objects only existed to call them something.
Huh?
Yeah, objects only existed until we called them something. That's actually a philosophy. I forgot what that was about, like a table.
Yeah. It's Plato, right? Yeah.
Play-Doh.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I couldn't say that. I just think though, yeah, like that happening is like that's the reason why I think about like sometimes like why I think about like why it makes me think about it a lot, but I say like I feel like we all just need like there's a certain compassion to it, man, because like I feel like I will completely ignore a meth head because it's like it might distract from what I'm doing. Like I've had people talk my ear off, you know, for hours and like not realize like I could just walk away, you know, like this happened when I was like a kid. This was really like when I was like 17, and I'd just be walking around and when you think about it, that's even weirder, you know, that that's like some you know some other shit. Creepy shit, but like I feel like you know there's a balance there because
well, I don't have the capabilities or the know-how to be other people's therapy.
Exactly.
And that's just something that we all have to acknowledge is that
you have to have compassion for other people without draining yourself.
Yeah, sure, but like you know, like for instance, if somebody got hit by a car, I'd have a lot of compassion for that person, but I'd call a medical expert. I wouldn't go over there and try to fix them because I know that that's not the right, you know, because that's a very a specific kind of knowledge, and you might need specific tools, right? So if I see somebody on the street with a clear psychological illness, I'm like, I have the same kind of compassion, but I can't fix you. I got no idea.
Exactly.
I need to go to school for 10 years. Like I've got no clue.
Yeah, and I think, and again, I think it's all those things that make people think about like, or it makes it like easy to kind of just like ignore people and stuff. And I think it's all just like because it's funny because like knowing that it doesn't make me like care less or like see that less. You know, if anything, you know, it's just more. Not more apparent. It's just something you notice, and then it becomes something in your mind. And you know, like you were saying, like we all need community, and I think, and all the different ways that every different person thinks about community.
And drug addiction certainly creates community.
Well, again, and seeing that in your own neighborhood, it can make you realize that, like, if there isn't enough of that, like, you see more of that, and there would be more stuff like that where you see people giving up and stuff like that because there isn't that support around.
You know,
because some people don't live like that. Some people aren't as honestly independent like that. My thought, like,
one of the things that drug addiction does is it gives a kind of opportunity to have a brutal honesty with other people. To sort of like when you have two drug addicts, right, and they can like talk shop, if you will, and all of the masks are off, and they can have a connection that generally they're robbed of in society at large, where we are prohibited from having those types. As we were walking up here, I said, except with the people that we happen to sleep with, right? And we need to move beyond that and say, like, I don't need to be titillated by you in order to have the deepest emotional connection I can. And furthermore, that doesn't make me or you a homosexual or any type of, sexual deviant for wanting to have a meaningful relationship with you. That's just being human and it's healthy, right? I mean, when people pay therapists like $200 an hour, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Exactly. You shouldn't give people like if someone, I mean, there's like you got people yelling at you sometimes. You have to be crackhead who's gonna fucking try and like just tell you just like be yelling at you, like telling you that you're the demon.
There's nothing I can do for those people. Again,
exactly.
It's like the person that got hit by a car. Like, what am I supposed to do?
But the people who are, like the guy who approached us the other day, I could say for that guy, he asked his name, and then said it, and as soon as he said that, because I already knew it was gonna happen. As soon as he said that, because Malik's a very open person, he will let people in like that. He'll, you know, like, because people like that can be intimidating, man. Like they'll come up to you, you know, talking like they know you, and he asked for his name, and as soon as he said that, he asked if we wanted to hang out and shit, and it's like that kind of that's at the point where you're like, okay, I can't do anything for you, because like you're not gonna ignore a person, you know, you just can't. It's hard. A lot of people can, but when you face to face with somebody like that, yeah, it's hard to run away from the idea that like, that person is a human still. You know what I mean? And you know, no matter what drugs do to that person or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So that's why, like you said, it's kind of funny when it only gets to a certain level where you can't do anything for people on a personal level. And then I think if you're somebody who has like a personal mission to eliminate those kinds of things, those are the kinds of scenarios that I see, like, you know, I would hope people would think about, you know, when those things happen to them.
I mean, I guess that's part of the hard reality is that you could quantify every person you meet on like this number, emotional investment required, right? And that's me saying that I've run out of hotspot minutes, and that now that we are going to be in really cruddy connection speed, but it's okay. What can you do? We got 20 minutes. Maybe, hopefully it'll still come up. But anyway, so like you guys would have the emotional investment required to be quite low, right? It's just pretty easy to connect with you, right? But somebody like that, it's off the charts, right? Like the amount of stuff that they would draw from you in order for that relationship, and it's up to you to say no. And I have chosen much more so to say no when I see that stuff, and I say, you know, that's not. I don't have that much emotional, you know, whatever currency. I don't have it. I can't invest it there. I don't have it.
And that's what's crazy is that, like, I think that even in itself is like such a hard thing. It's such a line to walk, because
it sounds terrible from the other person, but what I'm really saying is that, like,
I completely agree.
Is that if we do this, it's going to screw us both up.
Exactly, and I think that's what I'm saying is that, like, it's such a. I love that, because I love, like, that's a line to walk, and I believe that, like, I believe in that because it's hard, but like there are certain times where, like, you got, like, you have to realize you can't help everybody, but it's like I love that, like, I love that you don't always have to have emotional investment.
You can't.
When those things are happening, sometimes you can say something out of your own, just like being there. Like, that's why I think it's funny that, like,
it's like I have 10 miles on my tank of gas, and you're 20 miles away. And I say, no, you got to find somebody else, because if I go, I'll be stranded, and you'll still be stranded.
Right. I'm just saying that you don't even have to, like you can even still be around somebody, like, and not even talking about, like, someone, like, it doesn't have to be, like, a drug addict or anybody, you know, you can be around people, and you could be around people, you know, living a normal life, doing your thing, you have a job, whatever, you're a normal person, you know, you got your one-room apartment, you got friends you go out with every once in a while, and if you just, like, be there and accept people, you get so much out of that, you know, you don't even have to want or even feel anything from those exchanges, like, and I personally have, like just basically being open, like, all the time, and that can be also hard, like, kind of people say, like, wearing your heart on your sleeve. I don't really like that. It's like kind of a poetic way of saying it, but because I don't really like that. I like kind of being more realistic about what I'm trying to say. That's just the best way I can explain it, because I just feel like you don't always have to predict, like, how you feel or, like, what's gonna be, you know, what's gonna happen, like, in a conversation, or, like, how much that you will have to invest. You could just, you know, allow it to happen if you wish, like you said, and that's also then a choice. So I just feel like there's so many ways you can go about it. It's like, you know, because a lot of people will choose then to consciously not care because they have to walk the line of, like, that emotional, do I have to have this emotional investment? Or if I don't have the emotional investment, then I have to completely ignore it, you know, which I think I think you can do both. It's just a line. You know, it's a gray area, and I don't believe we live in a black and white world. You know, it's a gray world, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I see it that like you can do both things, but most people aren't willing to live those dualities because I feel like.
I mean, we only have a finite amount of time and energy every day. How do you want to spend it, right?
Totally, yeah, totally. I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that. That's exactly where it goes down to.
It's got to be more proactive than what we do. Is that, you know, a lot of our emotions and all this stuff comes from patterns that we do with our lives that we don't even notice, right?
Sure, yeah.
Is that we'll end up, let's say, getting into a pattern where it takes us 2 hours to get ready in the morning. Because whatever, right? Like,
right.
Well, whatever we end up doing, we don't even realize that we could do it in 20 minutes or whatever. That's just a stupid example. But what I'm saying is that there's all of these sort of interaction patterns with objects in the world, and it goes back to relationships, right? Is that we say, like, we don't acknowledge the relationship we have if we're not, like, that's the problem with, like, compulsive hoarding, right? Or any of these. A lot of those psychological problems come down to toxic relationships with either abstract ideas or with other people, and that if you change the theatrics of it, then the underlying reality will eventually change as well. It's one of those things where, like, even if you don't want to, if you get up earlier, like at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m., and you do what a cheery person would do, then you will actually become more happy with your life. It's crazy how that works. It sounds so counterintuitive. You're like, doesn't that just fakery? And you're like, no. Those patterns will lead to that emotional outcome.
Totally.
And that's like exactly how it works.
Totally.
And it's just so counterintuitive.
I don't like that. It's funny you say that because, you know, I hate that people don't feel like they can't do that. I feel like a lot of people end up just living out the cycles because they don't, like, people just don't. There are a lot of people out here who don't feel like they can change. Like,
Well, yeah, they say, I'm not that cheery person, so I'm not going to do it. And I say, no. You're not doing it, so you're not that cheery person. Uh-huh.
I can agree with that. I think people, like, there's a lot to enjoy about, you know, being, at the same time, like, it's not the same for everyone. So it depends on who you're talking about, you know, for sure. Like, I think there are some people who get the chance to, like.
It's more about how there are people that are genuinely, like, dumb. There are people that are generally geniuses. Okay, that exists. But for the rest of us, who are quite normal in all regards, the difference between our successes and our failures, our happiness and our defeat, is in the patterns that we participate in.
Oh, now I like that though.
Yeah.
Because that is.
I hope you like all of this.
That's the thing. That's the thing though that I like. And low key, I've been focusing on a lot. Is how how do you use your own pattern and like how you do things to just like do it for yourself. Like it doesn't have to be like, you know, any particular way. You know, it doesn't have to be the same way as everyone else does it. As long as you find a certain rhythm for yourself. Like
I'm going to see what that device is.
So suppose it's still working, okay?
Let's see. Hopefully it's okay. We got about five or so minutes.
oh man,
It's been a good hour, right?
I feel like I've been talking a lot.
You have been. Yeah, this is supposed to be with. This is just the initial.
It's an off day. I'm not. My pistons aren't working today.
Well, I'm glad you brought somebody then.
I didn't know what the fuck. You know, I just like listening.
It's okay. I mean, yeah, it's.
This guy's got a lot of stuff to say though.
No, he does.
Yeah. It's got to shake those.
You get what?
Get into the conversation, you know, like engage more. I don't really do that. I'm very kind of removed sometimes from like the discussions. And I might in my head I'm like involved, you know, listening. How do I contribute to that and also keep it going?
You know,
Distracting you.
the kind of. I think that we all have a problem where we have these ideas and structures that only exist in our heads. And getting them out into the world is the exercise that a lot of us don't engage with enough of. And we get into situations where we're talking with somebody and we presume that they already have all of the stuff that we've gone over in our heads, right? You know what I mean? But we forgot to tell them.
What?
It's true. And you're like, oh, these people already understand all these ideas that are mine. You're like, no, they don't. Like, you didn't open up your mouth. You know? Especially when you first meet somebody. Right? It's like you. It's not like saying like, oh, hi, you know, I went to this school and I've got this degree. It's more like you got to establish who you are, kind of, but not in any kind of
You just have to say it.
credentialed way.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
I guess like I like how you put that. I would just say I'm not sure myself a lot of the time. Like I'm really not sure what I'm doing or saying. Like even though it might make sense, you know, I'm really like erratic. Like I'm all over the place.
You need to stop that.
I know it sucks.
Here's what you need. Here's what you should do. You should when you say like I don't know what I want to do in life. Nobody does. So just pick something, anything at all, and say I'm going to give this my all for the next 7 days, or 14, or 6 months, or whatever. And you're putting a time lock on it, right? You're saying if I don't like it after 7 days, I can switch. But right now, this is going to be what I'm going to be solely committed to doing, whatever it happens to be. Well, you know, and then after 7 days, if you're like, I enjoy this, revisit it, then do it again. And then continue doing that throughout your entire life. And at one point, you might be like, oh, I want to be a puppeteer now, or whatever the heck it is, right? And you just drop it like it's hot. And you're like, you know, I've done my 7-day thing, we're done. And I think that that's really how people have to do it, because otherwise you are in this paralysis where you're trying to do everything at once, and you think you've accomplished everything, but nothing gets done. It's like you've brought the ingredients out to make the sandwich, but then you did a phone call, and then your friend was cut off, and so you got the towel ready to take a shower. Like nothing ever happens because you're only doing 10% of anything. So fully commit yourself to something for a small amount of time. You got the time, and see how it goes. Anything. Because you can show you something else next week. It doesn't matter. You can just switch it.
Yeah, totally.
But give it its time.
The sense of self, like that we all like are taught that we need to have it's so funny because it can be anything.
Yeah.
It can be here, it can be there. You get it from all sorts of places, all inspirations, and everywhere, from everywhere. Music, art.
I don't know what it is for you people. I mean, it could be ballroom dancing. I have no idea.
Exactly, man. It's that ant on the ground over there, man.
Yeah.
It's the anthill, bro. I see the anthill and I think.
Learning German. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, just whatever your passions are.
Yeah.
And you ask yourself, like, okay, I've been wanting to do this for 10 years. Why haven't I done anything about it? What the hell? Because you haven't taken the time.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's a word for the folks.
Well said.
Yeah, that's why I think that the patterns that we employ in our lives are the differences between whether we succeed or fail, for the most part, unless we're one of the very few geniuses out there. But I think that that's one out of every 10,000 or so. There's rare people who are 7 feet tall, right? Like that's how rare it is. And so like for almost all, effectively everybody, we're all kind of in this huge glob of normalcy, including me, right? I'm not. I don't preclude myself from that. I think I'm exceptionally normal.
Right. No, I get what you're saying. We're all in the same fucking boat, man. And, like again, man, all organization, man. We want to all flip the boat. We could all just flip the boat, in one swing. But that would be all up to us.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's our time. Any last words?
Thank you, Andy, and you're the best.
Thank you so much. I'm glad nobody came up and harassed us for this. This is good. All right, well, let me go there and stop this. Good.